Hi there, this is Stories for Sleep, and I'm Thumani's here to spend a quiet evening with you. A space where nothing needs to get done, where you can let the day go gently. Right now, just lie down as comfortably as you can. Let your hands rest beside you or gently over your belly. No need to adjust anything, just be. Take a slow breath in, hold it softly, then exhale easy and quiet. One more time. Inhale deeply. Feel the air cooling your chest and exhale like you're letting the day slip away. Now bring your attention to your forehead. If you're holding tension, let it go. Let your brow soften. Move down to your shoulders. Feel them sinking into the mattress. Relax your arms, hands, and fingertips. Let them feel light, like they're floating in warm water. Notice your chest and belly gently rising and falling, like a quiet boat rocking on still water. And now, know that there's nothing more you have to do. No one needs you to respond. No one is waiting. This moment is just for you and for a story told softly to help you rest. Whenever you're ready, we'll begin. You're gripping a burning coal thinking it hurts them. It's only burning you. Hey guys, tonight we're going to step right into one of those nights you probably know all too well. The kind where you're lying there staring at the ceiling and your brain suddenly decides it's the perfect time to replay frame by frame the face of someone who betrayed you. Every word they said, every moment you trusted them. Like your mind has this high-definition betrayal channel, it just refuses to switch off. And here's the thing, you're not just remembering it, you're living it again. Your jaw tenses. Your chest feels heavier. You start having imaginary conversations in your head, perfect comebacks, better endings. You think, if I let this go, won't they just win? You sure you could survive the night without holding on to this? Honestly, you probably could. In fact, you might sleep better than you have in months. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me in the comments where you're listening from tonight and what time it is for you. I love knowing who's awake with me in these quiet hours. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. Imagine this, a paper lantern swaying ever so slightly in the night breeze. You're sitting on the wooden veranda of a small temple tucked away in the hills. The air smells faintly of pine and cool stone. The world is hushed except for the occasional creak of the bamboo water spout tipping over and spilling into the basin. Inside, an old monk sits cross-legged, his robe pooling like dark water around him. You've come here with your question, raw, burning, and heavy. Master, you say, should I forgive someone who betrayed me? He looks at you for a long moment. The night insects sing in the distance. Then instead of answering, he asks, tell me, when you carry a hot coal in your bare hand, are you holding it for them or for yourself? You don't answer right away. You feel the weight of his words, the sting of their heat. Somewhere in the darkness, a night bird calls. The silence stretches, and you wonder if this is the answer, this pause. This space where your anger has nothing to feed on but itself. And that's when you notice your breath has slowed. The image of their face is still there, but the grip it had on you is just a little looser. Tomorrow the question might return. But for now, in this moment, it feels just light enough to set down at least until we take the next step together. In the next part, we'll see what happens when a master's question feels more like a riddle than an answer. And why? That's exactly the point. The monk's eyes narrow, not in suspicion, but in a way that makes you feel like he's looking through every thought you've ever had. The cicadas hum louder for a moment, as if they too are leaning in to hear what he will say next. Then, in the softest voice, he asks, "If the bridge you're standing on begins to burn, do you wait for the flames to reach your feet, or do you walk away?" You blink. That's not the answer you were expecting. It's not even about betrayal, or so it seems. But somehow it lands deep. "Master, I don't understand," you admit. He smiles faintly, the kind of smile that suggests he expected that. "Of course you don't," he says, "because you think the bridge is between you and them. But sometimes the bridge is between you and your own peace." The wind shifts, rustling the pine branches overhead. Somewhere in the temple garden, a stone chime clinks against its neighbor. You think about this bridge. Is it the memory? The anger? The need for them to admit they were wrong? All of it. And if it's burning, Suma Bibi, you've been the one holding the torch. The master rises slowly, the way old trees sway in the wind. He gestures for you to follow him. His sandaled feet make almost no sound on the temple stones, but yours, well, yours, seem to stomp like your thoughts. He leads you through the narrow garden path, past mossy stones and tiny blossoms that only open at night. The air is cool, damp, with the smell of earth after rain. "Come," he says, stopping beside a small wooden bench under a plum tree. "Sit." You sit. The bench creaks like it's been waiting years for someone to lean on it again. "Tell me," the master says, "how heavy is the thought you carry?" You hesitate. The question sounds simple, but your chest feels heavier just hearing it. It depends on the day, you answer quietly. "No," he says. "It depends on how tightly you grip it." And there it is again, the feeling that he hasn't given you an answer but a mirror. You shift on the bench. Your knees ache from sitting cross-legged too long. The night is so still you can hear your own heartbeat. Maybe forgiveness, you think, isn't about them at all. Maybe it's about putting down something before it burns you from the inside out. The master doesn't press you further. He lets the silence do the talking. And somewhere inside that silence, you feel a question forming. A question that will change the direction of this conversation entirely in the next part. You don't realize you've been holding your breath until it escapes in a slow sigh. The night air slides in to fill the space cool and damp, tasting faintly of the plum blossoms above. The master watches you not like a teacher waiting for the right answer, but like someone watching the tide roll in, knowing it will reach the shore when it's ready. "Master," you finally say, "how do I put it down? How do I stop carrying it?" He tilts his head as if you've just asked how to stop carrying the sky. There was once a young monk, he begins, who was traveling with an older companion. They came to a river where a young woman stood afraid to cross. Without hesitation, the older monk lifted her onto his back and carried her across. You've heard this one before, or at least you think you have. When they reached the other side, the master continues. The young monk said nothing. But after many miles, he burst out, "We monks do not touch women. Why did you carry her?" The older monk replied, "I put her down by the river hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" The master lets the story settle between you like fallen leaves. The bamboo water spout tips, pours, and resets. You picture it clearly, the older monk walking away light and unbothered, the younger one still dragging the weight of something that happened hours ago. It's almost funny, you think. Almost if it didn't feel so much like your own life. You've been carrying them, their betrayal, long past, the moment it happened. And worse, you've been carrying the story. You tell yourself about it over and over, polishing it until it gleams with pain. The master's gaze drifts toward the dark line of the hills. We carry what we choose to remember, he says, and we remember what we feed. You lean back against the bench, feeling the wood press into your shoulders. Somewhere inside, something shifts like a bag slipping from one hand to the other. Not gone, not yet, but lighter. Still part of you resists. If you put it down, what's to stop them from doing it again? The master, as if reading your thoughts, closes his eyes. Forgiving is not forgetting, he says softly. It's refusing to keep drinking poison just to prove it was bitter. The night seems to lean in around you, and for the first time you start to wonder if the first step isn't about them at all, but about you unclenching your fist. In the next part, the master will give you no story, no words, just silence. And somehow, that will speak louder than anything you've heard tonight. The master rises without a word. His robe sways around his ankles, catching the lantern light like ripples on dark water. You follow him through the garden, past the koi pond, where the fish move like slow-living brushstrokes under the moon. He leads you into a small wooden hall. No candles, no incense, just a single open window where the night air slides in, carrying the faint smell of pine and rain. He sits, cross-legged, still. You wait for him to speak. He doesn't. A minute passes, or maybe 5. You start to hear your own pulse in your ears. The room is so quiet you notice sounds you'd usually miss: the faint creak of the wood beneath you, the whisper of your robe as you shift, the far-off call of a night bird. Finally, you say, "Master." He opens his eyes, looks at you, and says nothing. It's unsettling. You came here for guidance, for words, yet here you are wrapped in this strange, heavy quiet. Your thoughts fidget. They want to fill the space. They start replaying the betrayal like they always do. But without words from him to bounce off, the images feel weaker. They start to dissolve into the hum of the night. The master's gaze is steady but not piercing. It's the kind of look that doesn't demand you speak, doesn't demand you change, just lets you be here exactly as you are. And in that space, you notice something. Your shoulders have dropped. Your jaw has unclenched. The ache in your chest has softened just a little. He finally speaks, not loudly, but so quietly you almost wonder if you imagined it. You do not always need to answer a question he says for it to be answered. The silence returns like a tide rolling back in. You begin to understand not every wound needs to be talked to death. Some need only to stop being fed. Outside, the wind stirs the bamboo grove. The paper screen rattles once, then rests. And there in that stillness, a small space opens inside you. Not enough to fit forgiveness yet, but enough to let go of the need to replay the scene again tonight. In the next part, the master will trade silence for something unexpected. A simple teacup and the lesson hidden in the moment, it overflows. The next morning, the temple smells faintly of wet earth and boiled leaves. You find the master in the small tea room, crouched beside a low table. Sunlight filters through the shoji screens in thin gold ribbons painting stripes across the tatami mat. Without a word, he gestures for you to sit. A small clay teapot rests between you. The master pours steaming tea into your cup, slowly, carefully. You watch the liquid rise. Halfway, 3/4, full. He keeps pouring. The tea spills over the rim, running down the sides of the cup, pooling on the tray. You jerk forward. Master. It's full. He looks at you, the faintest smile on his lips. And so is your mind. You sit back. The steam curls up between you like a question mark. When the mind is full of anger, he says, wiping the cup with a cloth, there is no room for peace. When it is full of stories about what they did to you, there is no space for what you might do next. To receive anything new, you must first pour something out. You glance at the damp tea stains spreading on the tray. You think about the hours, no years you've spent topping up your resentment, keeping it fresh, making sure it never cools. And if I pour it out, you ask. He shrugs gently. Then you can taste what comes after. The tea he pours you this time doesn't spill. It's light in color, delicate in scent. You sip it, expecting something dramatic, but it's simple, almost plain. Still, it's the first sip you've taken in a while without your jaw clenched. The master pours for himself. Forgiveness is not sweetness, he says. It's emptiness and openness, where the hurt no longer fills every corner. You roll his words around in your head like the tea on your tongue. You don't know if you're ready to pour it all out, but maybe just a little. Outside, the temple bell sounds once. The note hangs in the air, then fades, leaving room for the next sound to arrive. In the next part, the master will turn the conversation in a way you didn't expect, showing that forgiveness is not a gift to the one who wronged you, but a release meant for you alone. The bell's echo still lingers when the master sets his cup down and fixes his gaze on you, not sharp, not soft, just steady enough to make you sit a little straighter. You think forgiveness is for them, he says. It isn't. You open your mouth to argue, but he raises a hand and you find yourself closing it again. It is for you, he continues, so you may walk without dragging chains they cannot even feel. Something in you bristles. But if I let it go, doesn't that mean they win? He shakes his head slowly, like a parent correcting a child who's missed the simplest truth. If you hold a burning coal, do you think the fire cares who wins? You picture it. The heat, the blistering pain, the stubborn refusal to drop it just to prove a point. It's ridiculous. And yet, you've been doing exactly that. The master leans forward slightly, his voice dropping to something almost conspiratorial. They may never know you forgave them. They may never care. But the weight you release, you will feel it. And that is enough. Outside, a crow calls from the pine grove, its voice rough and insistent. You wonder if it's mocking you or warning you. The master picks up the teapot again, pouring another cup for himself. Forgiveness, he says, is like setting down a bag of stones you've carried for years. You don't need to tell anyone. You just notice one day your shoulders are lighter. You lean back, watching the steam rise between you. A part of you resists, afraid that if you put it down, the hurt will lose its shape, and with it, your sense of what happened. But another part wonders what it might feel like to walk unburdened, even for a single day. The master doesn't push. He just sips his tea and looks out the window as if the conversation is now in your hands. And you realize he's not giving you an answer to memorize. He's leaving space for you to live into it. In the next part, he will tell you about the 2 arrows, and you will see why clinging to the second one might be hurting you more than the first ever did. The master sets his cup down with a soft clink. There is an old teaching, he begins, about the 2 arrows. You lean in, sensing the weight in his tone. When someone harms you, he says it is like being struck by the first arrow. The pain is sharp, immediate, and real. But then he pauses. Letting the silence wrap around the next words, you pick up a second arrow. You stab yourself with it again and again. Every time you replay the story in your mind, every time you let anger live another day. You blink, imagining it standing there with 1 arrow in your side, deciding for some reason to add another. Why would anyone do that, you ask? The master smiles faintly. Because they think the second arrow will punish the shooter. But it only deepens their own wound. You shift on the mat, the truth of it pressing against you. That second arrow has been with you for a long time, longer than you'd like to admit. You've polished it, sharpened it, told its story to anyone who would listen. And in doing so, you've kept it fresh. The master leans back, his robe folding around him like dark waves. The first arrow, he says, was not your choice. The second always is. His words settle in your chest like pebbles at the bottom of a still pond. You think about every sleepless night, every tense jaw, every imaginary conversation you've had since it happened. all second arrows. Outside, the wind stirs the chimes hanging by the veranda. They sing a note so brief and pure that it vanishes almost before you notice it. What if I put down the second arrow, you ask quietly. The master nods once. Then the first will heal on its own. The room falls silent again, but this time it doesn't feel empty, it feels possible. In the next part, he will take you for a walk through the temple garden where the quiet changes everything. And you'll see how even the most stubborn wounds shift under the simple truth that nothing, no season, no pain lasts forever. The garden path is narrow, bordered by moss, so lush it looks like it's been painted there. The master walks ahead, his hands folded behind his back, his steps unhurried. You follow, trying to match his pace, but your mind still moves faster than your feet. The air smells of damp earth and plum blossoms. A light mist clings to the leaves, catching the morning sun in tiny sparks. Somewhere nearby, water drips from a bamboo spout into a stone basin with a rhythm so steady it might as well be a heartbeat. For a while, neither of you speaks. You pass a cluster of irises swaying in the breeze, their petals bending but never breaking. The master stops beside them. Everything here, he says, changes. Even the mountains given time will be worn down by wind and rain. Why should your pain be the one thing in the world that refuses to move? You watch a single petal fall, turning lazily in the air before it lands on the path. It's not that I want to hold on you, admit. It's that I don't know who I'd be without it. The master nods as if this is the most honest thing you've said all morning. That is why you must walk with it until it grows lighter on its own. You do not need to force it to leave. You only need to stop feeding it. You continue walking, passing a pine whose roots knot and twist around stones, holding them gently but firmly. The mist begins to lift, revealing the curve of the garden wall ahead. Beyond it, the hills roll into the distance, layered in soft blue haze. For a moment, the horizon feels bigger than your story, bigger than the hurt. The master steps aside, letting you walk ahead. Sometimes, he says, we forgive not because they deserve it, but because we deserve to be free. You glance back at him. His robe stirs slightly in the breeze, and for the first time, you notice his eyes crinkle at the edges when he smiles. A breeze carries the scent of pine past you. The garden feels both vast and small, as if the whole world could fit in this moment. In the next part, he will hand you a stone not as a burden, but as a lesson. And you'll see how something so small can still weigh on you until you choose to let it go. The master pauses beneath the shade of an old cedar and bends down. From the moss at his feet, he picks up a small round stone, smooth the color of river clay. He turns and places it gently into your palm. Carry this, he says. You close your fingers around it. It's not heavy. In fact, it's so light, you almost laugh. That's it, you ask. He simply nods and begins walking again. At first, you hardly notice it. You stroll through the garden, your other hand brushing against the lavender growing along the path. But after a while, the stone becomes an itch you can't ignore. Your fingers ache from keeping it clenched. You start shifting it from one hand to the other. By the time you reach the far end of the garden, the weight feels different. Not because it's heavier, but because you've been carrying it so long for no reason at all. The master stops beside a small wooden bridge. Beneath it, water trickles over smooth stones, making a sound that could lull you to sleep. He gestures toward the stream. "Throw it in," he says. You hesitate, but it's just a stone. He tilts his head. So is your anger. So is your resentment. Small things, perhaps. But small things, held long enough, will still leave your hand cramped. You look at the stone one last time, then drop it into the water. It makes a soft plunk disappears, and the stream swallows the sound almost instantly. Your hand feels strangely light. You flex your fingers, noticing how they can finally open fully. The master watches you. Forgiveness is not always dramatic, he says. Sometimes it's as quiet as letting go of something you never needed to carry. A breeze ripples across the water. The stone is already out of sight, and you realize unless you go digging for it, you'll never see it again. You follow him back toward the temple. Somewhere behind you, the stream keeps running as if nothing happened at all. In the next part, the master will step out into the rain with a laugh, and you'll see how even the weather has a lesson about not letting the outside decide the inside. By afternoon, the sky has shifted from pale blue to a restless gray. The wind picks up, carrying the smell of wet leaves before the first drop even falls. You're sitting under the temple eaves when the rain begins, slow at first, then steady, each drop ringing softly against the roof tiles. The master steps outside. No umbrella, no hesitation. His sandals splash in the growing puddles as if he's been waiting for this all day. You watch in disbelief as he tilts his head back, letting the rain hit his face. Then to your surprise, he laughs a low, warm laugh that blends with the sound of the downpour. "Master," you call out from the safety of the eaves. "You'll get soaked." He glances at you, grinning. It's only water. The way he says it makes you think he's talking about more than rain. He gestures for you to join him. Reluctantly, you step out. The cold hits you first, then the strange lightness of realizing you don't have to fight it. You can just let it fall. People are like this with their feelings, the master says over the rain. If it's sunny, they smile. If it rains, they frown. They let the sky decide how they feel. A rivulet of water runs down the back of your neck. You want to wipe it away, but then you remember the stone and the cup and the 2 arrows. Maybe this is just another thing you don't need to resist. The master's robe clings to his frame, heavy with water, but his laughter keeps spilling out as if the rain has no say over him. You feel it then, not joy exactly, but a strange sense of freedom. The rain isn't personal. It doesn't care who you are, what you've done, or what's been done to you. It just falls. And maybe you think the betrayal was like this too. It happened. It soaked you. But you don't have to stay wet forever. The master turns toward the temple water streaming from his sleeves. Come, he says. Let's dry off before you catch cold. Your anger has already done enough of that. Inside, the air smells faintly of cedar and tea leaves again. You sit by the window, watching the rain slow to a drizzle, and feel cleaner somehow. In the next part, the master will speak of how even anger has an expiration date, and you'll wonder if yours has already passed without you noticing. The rain has stopped, but the sound of it lingers in the dripping eaves and the soft hiss of water sliding down the garden stones. You sit by the window, wrapped in a dry robe the master handed you, while he stirs the embers in the small brazier between you. Anger, he says without looking up, has an expiration date. You raise an eyebrow. It doesn't feel like mine does. He smiles faintly as if he's heard this before. All things spoil when kept too long, milk bread, even the finest tea leaves. Leave them sitting and they turn bitter. Anger is no different. He takes a bundle of tea from the shelf, cradling it like something precious. This, he says, is best enjoyed within a season. After that, the fragrance fades, the taste dulls, and it's nothing but dry leaves. And yet, he looks at you now. People will keep anger for years, convinced it will still serve them. You think of how long you've been holding yours. The first days after it happened, it was sharp, hot, almost electric. Now it's just heavy, stale. But you've carried it anyway out of habit, maybe even out of fear of the space it might leave behind. What happens if you use tea that's too old, you ask? The master pours the leaves into a cup and fills it with hot water. The scent that rises is faint, almost nothing at all. You take a sip. It's flat, lifeless. It gives you nothing, he says. But still you drink it because you've forgotten what fresh tastes like. You glance at the rain-darkened garden outside. So what do you do with old tea? He tips the cup into the brazier. The liquid hisses as it meets the coals, then vanishes in a curl of steam. You thank it for what it once gave you, he says, and you let it go. The room is quiet except for the faint crackle of the brazier, and you realize you don't even remember the last time your anger gave you anything but more nights like the one you had before you came here. In the next part, the master will speak of bridges, those we burn, those we cross. And you'll see that sometimes forgiveness is simply choosing to step forward without looking back. The brazier's warmth clings to you as the master rises and gestures toward the open walkway that circles the temple. The air outside is fresh now, rinsed clean by the rain. Drops cling to every leaf and rail, trembling in the morning light before sliding silently away. You walk together in slow, measured steps. The wooden boards creak under your weight, and somewhere in the distance a single crow calls. People speak often of burning bridges, the master says, eyes fixed on the horizon. They think it means ending something, with finality cutting ties, so there's no return. But sometimes, He pauses, his gaze drifting down to the valley below. A bridge isn't meant to be burned, it's meant to be crossed. You glance at him, and if it leads back to someone who hurt me, he shakes his head. Not every bridge leads back. Some lead away from the place where the hurt happened. Crossing it doesn't mean going to them. It means going to the other side of yourself. You picture it, a wooden bridge stretching over a quiet stream. Behind you, the place where it happened, every argument, every sleepless night. Ahead, a path you can't fully see. What if the bridge feels dangerous, you ask? The master runs his hand along the railing, where droplets glitter like small clear jewels. Then you walk slowly. But you walk. Standing still only lets the old world claim you longer. The two of you stop at the corner where the walkway overlooks the garden. The bridge in your mind still hovers there, half in shadow, half in light. You don't need to announce you've crossed it, the master says. No one needs to witness it. You will know. Below, the stream from the garden gurgles over smooth stones, carrying the rainwater towards somewhere unseen. You rest your hands on the railing. The idea of crossing feels both terrifying and possible. The master doesn't press further. He simply stands with you until the sound of the stream becomes part of your breathing. In the next part, he will guide you into the simplest act, one breath at a time, and you'll see how even your tightest memories can loosen when you stop holding them so hard. The master leads you back inside, not to the tea room this time, but to a small bare space with nothing but a cushion on the floor. The walls are plain wood, the light soft and without direction, as if it's coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. He gestures for you to sit. Just breathe, he says. You lower yourself onto the cushion, crossing your legs awkwardly. Your knees complain. Your back isn't sure what to do. The master sits opposite you, his spine straight, his hands resting lightly in his lap. At first, he says your breath will feel ordinary. Then, your mind will try to decorate it with memories, with stories, with that face you've been carrying. Let them pass. One breath at a time. You try. Inhale, exhale. At first, you do exactly what he warned you about remembering, rehashing, arguing with someone who isn't here. But the master's presence pulls you back like a lighthouse, pulling your gaze away from the storm. Notice the space between breaths, he whispers. You do. And in that thin, quiet gap, the memory of betrayal flickers like a candle about to go out. The master doesn't close his eyes. He watches you, not to judge, but to anchor you. When your thoughts wander too far, his gaze pulls them gently home. Minutes pass, or maybe longer. The smell of rain-soaked cedar drifts in through the open window. A bird lands on the sill, cocks its head at you, then flits away. Something shifts. You're still sitting in the same place, but the memory feels farther, not erased, just less solid. You see, the master says softly, the mind is like a hand. If it keeps gripping, it cannot rest. But if it opens even a little, it can hold nothing and still be full. You breathe again. This time the air feels cooler, cleaner, as if it has traveled a long way just to reach you. When you open your eyes fully, the Master is smiling. Not broadly, just enough to let you know you've taken a step you can't untake. In the next part, he will show you that forgiveness isn't a duty, it's a choice. And when you see that the weight you've been carrying will start to shift for good, the Master rises slowly, his knees creaking just enough to remind you that even wisdom lives in a body that ages. He walks toward the veranda, and you follow the air outside, cool against your skin. The rain has left everything sharper, the green of the moss, the dark lines of the cedar trunks, the pale blush of the plum blossoms. He rests his hands on the railing. Forgiveness, he says, is not a commandment. It is not an obligation placed upon you by others. It is a choice. And like all choices, you can make it today, tomorrow, or never. You feel something tighten in your chest. And if I choose never, he glances at you unblinking. Then you will live with what you have chosen. That, too, is your right. But understand, when we choose to keep carrying the burden, never becomes lighter by itself. You look down at the garden path where the petals have fallen scattered without pattern. The wind will take them, the rain will wash them away. None of them fight to stay. It sounds so simple when you say it, you murmur. The Master's smile is almost imperceptible. Simple is not the same as easy. You can stand at the riverbank for years, thinking about crossing. The river will not judge you, but you will always know you are still on the same side. You take in a slow breath, the air smelling faintly of damp wood. The thought comes uninvited. What would it feel like to wake tomorrow and realize the weight was gone? Would you feel relief or fear at the empty space it leaves behind? The Master doesn't press for an answer. He turns his gaze toward the distant hills, their shapes soft in the afternoon light. Choice, he says, is the moment you stop asking whether you should and start deciding whether you will. Somewhere in your chest, the question you brought here feels less like a wall and more like a door. You're not sure yet if you'll open it, but you're closer than you've ever been. In the next part, the Master will leave you with an image so simple, a finger pointing at the moon, that you'll carry it beyond this conversation into a place where forgiveness and enlightenment meet. The sky is deepening into evening, the light slipping into that in-between place where day exhales and night hasn't quite settled in. The Master stands at the edge of the veranda, one hand tucked into his sleeve, the other lifted index finger pointing upward. You follow his gesture and see the moon, just a thin crescent tonight, resting quietly above the dark line of the hills. What do you see? He asks. The moon, you say, wondering if it's a trick. He shakes his head lightly. No. Right now you see my finger. You frown, glancing from his hand to the sky again. But your finger is only pointing. Exactly, he says. The finger is not the moon. The story you tell about what happened to you is not the thing itself. It only points to it. And if you keep staring at the finger, you will never see the moon. The breeze lifts the edge of his robe. Somewhere in the distance, a night bird calls. You think about the nights you've spent staring at the finger, every retelling, every mental replay, every argument rehearsed in silence. And maybe you've been missing what's above it all. The master lowers his hand. One finger, one sentence, one instant, and the truth can appear. But you must be willing to look past the pointing. The moon hangs steady, indifferent to your thoughts, your grudges, your questions. It doesn't shine for or against anyone, it simply shines. You inhale and something inside you feels just a little wider, not empty, just open. The master turns toward you. When you are ready, forgiveness will be nothing more than stepping out from under the shadow of your own hand. You stand together in silence, watching the sky darken, the stars beginning to prick through. The moment stretches, not needing to end, not needing to be named. And somewhere in that quiet, you know the next step won't come from more talking, but from the seeing. The master's voice is barely more than a whisper now. And when you are ready for the next lesson, it will be waiting. His words hang in the cooling air, pointing, without forcing, toward the path ahead. And that path will lead you to the next story. Zen stories and Buddhist teachings, one finger, one sentence, one instant of enlightenment. The temple is quiet now. The lanterns along the veranda glow faintly, their light spilling in soft pools across the wooden floor. The master has gone inside, leaving you alone with the night. You can still feel the dampness in the air from the earlier rain. Somewhere beyond the garden wall, a stream murmurs to itself, unbothered by the day's events. You let your gaze drift upward. The moon is higher now, brighter, no longer a thin sliver, but a steady curve of light. You think of the master's finger, how easy it is to mistake the pointing for the thing itself. How easy it is to stay locked in the story instead of stepping into the truth beyond it. Your breath falls into a slow, even rhythm. Each inhale cool and deep. Each exhale warmer, softer, carrying away what you no longer need. The weight in your chest hasn't vanished completely, but it has loosened like a knot that has been gently worked free over time. The garden smells of pine and damp earth. The night wraps itself around you like a blanket, just pulled from the sun. Somewhere in the shadows, a cicada hums, steady and low. You realize that forgiveness, if it comes, will come quietly. Not as a grand gesture, not as a moment the world will notice, but as something that shifts inside you so subtly you almost miss it. You close your eyes and let the darkness behind your lids swell and deepen. The edges of the temple, the garden, the sound of water all begin to blur. And when sleep finally finds you, it feels like stepping onto a bridge you didn't know you'd been walking toward all along. In the next video, the master will reveal what happens when one finger, one sentence, one instant becomes enough to change everything. End of script. Sweet dreams.